What's going on, guys? KEVINCAGE here with another crypto update. I hope everybody's doing well, and let's dive in because we have a bunch to go over today. So first up, we have the man, the myth, the legend, I should say, the man, the myth, the ghost, Arthur Britto. So he is one of the original co-founders of the XRP ledger and the company Ripple. This is the first tweet he's made in 14 years. And I followed this guy for a while. I remember turning post notifications on a while back, and we can see he's only following 2 people, and this is his first ever and only tweet, I believe, that he's ever made on Twitter in 14 years. So we can see right here, no words, just an emoji. So very interesting, and we have David Schwartz down here below. I think it's interesting because he can say, I can confirm that this was not a hack or a compromise. Now when we go to Arthur's actual Twitter and we see who he's following, we can only see 2 names. We have Jack McDonald, the CEO over at Standard Custody, and we have Roger Ver. So pretty wild that he's been a complete ghost for 14 years. We've never seen, I think there has been a picture that's been leaked of him before, but I think a lot of people just choose to respect his privacy. But he's been a ghost, even throughout the court case. You're not really seeing his name mentioned whatsoever. So why did he decide to tweet now? And do I believe this is actually Arthur Britto that tweeted that out? Yes, I do. So it definitely makes you wonder. We've done a lot of videos on Arthur Britto years ago, so I'm sure you guys are already familiar, but feel free to look into this because it's very interesting. And I remember within the last 2 years, I went to his profile one day and I was just looking at it and I didn't see any tweets, and I was just wondering, will he ever tweet? So it's really cool to see that he finally tweeted. Overall, we're seeing a lot of market volatility. We've heard the Middle East ceasefire and all this of, crypto going up, going down, etc. I think it's the same old. We have Bitcoin dominance still at 65%. So looking at the weekly time frame, we have Bitcoin dominance still at a high, still in this uptrend, and I believe, not financial advice, when we crash, that will be the alt season, just like we've seen for the last 2. And I always think these headlines are pretty silly. So we have Bitcoin reclaiming 106K as crypto market soars. We have Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and Cardano rally big on the Middle East ceasefire hopes. If you go through each of these altcoins, they retraced a bit, maybe 15 to 20%. And if we go down to the daily and just look at each of these alts super quick, I just want to show you what I mean. So it's not like any crazy huge rally just yet. Keep in mind that a lot of these assets fell down, and then since then we got that say 15 to 20% retracement, and they're saying this is the big rally. So just keep that in mind when you're seeing news headlines. I'm more so just focused on Bitcoin's monthly time frame and Bitcoin dominance because that will give us insight into the biggest moves for alts like it has for the last 2 cycles. So to each their own. I'm not somebody that's going to say, oh my gosh, we're going parabolic after an asset actually pulled back about 26-27%, and then it begins to retrace a bit, not even close to that initial drop. And for anybody that might be new to crypto investing or even just kind of looking into this space, I understand in equities, if you saw a 5, 10, or even 15% retracement, that would be absolutely insane, but it's very different in crypto. And it's also important to remember, if an asset's price drops by 10%, so say you have an asset that's worth $100, it drops 10% or $10 and now it's worth $90. The required percent gain to get back up to that $100 level would be over 10% at 11.11%. And it gets even crazier the bigger the crash or percentage drop there is. So with a 50% drop, it requires a gain of 100% or 2x. And it's even crazier for a 90% drop. So say an asset is worth $100, it crashes 90% and now it's worth $10. The required gain to get that $10 back to being $100 would be 900% or a 10x. And taking a quick look at the XRP price chart on the daily time frame, so since the big move last year, that huge impulse that we saw in November, up until the all-time high around $3.39. We can see thus far, from the low to the high, we did retrace perfectly to a 618 Fibonacci retracement, right around $1.60, which is beautiful. And the biggest question I still have that I discussed back here in April is if this is the bottom or not. Are we actually going to be holding this level? Do we actually pull back a little bit more in this purple box, or is that enough before reaching some of these golden extensions? And as always, this is never financial advice. I don't know the future, and that's why my huge focus is on Bitcoin, the US dollar index, and Bitcoin dominance based on the previous 2 cycles, because XRP historically, during the last 2 times when it had the highest amount of ROI was during alt season. And be sure to check out Caleb and Brown linked right in the top of the YouTube video description as well as right in my link tree, and this is my #1 OTC broker. Alright, next up, we've shared by Cointelegraph, bullish, Solana CME futures volume hits an all-time high of 1.75 million contracts. And now let's dive into this, shared by Crypto Eddie. So we're actually going to start chronologically going back to last month and go through a few interesting pieces of notes for XRP. Alright, first up, we're going back just a few weeks ago to May 28th. We have Vivo Power, which is a NASDAQ-traded company. And they announced an XRP-focused digital asset treasury strategy and a $121 million private placement. So what does this mean? Vivo Power raised $121 million from investors, and the company plans to use these funds to buy XRP, with plans to hold this XRP as part of its financial reserves. So this is why they're calling it a digital asset treasury strategy. Similar to how companies hold cash or gold, but here they're actually holding XRP. And what exactly is this private placement term, this $121 million? So this is basically when a company is raising money by selling shares directly to investors. So this isn't through the public stock market, so it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's usually aimed at large institutional investors. And we can see that Vivo Power sold these shares at $6.05 per share, which was higher than the current market price, and that's pretty rare, and that shows that there's strong investor interest. So this was back in May, a publicly traded company buying XRP with $121 million in institutional capital. And this right here is giving XRP credibility as a corporate reserve asset, just like cash or even gold. And I strongly believe we're going to see many other companies begin to hold crypto instead of just fiat. Next, we have on June 11th, we have Vivo Power to deploy $100 million in XRP on Flare to generate yield, and they're adding the Ripple US dollar for treasury operations. So we have the same company putting up to $100 million of XRP to work on a blockchain called Flare that we're all familiar with, and they're going to be using the Ripple stablecoin Ripple US dollar RLUSD for internal payments and treasury operations. Now, I'm not the most well-versed on Flare. I used to pay attention to it a lot before the airdrop stuff happened a while ago, but essentially, Flare is a blockchain that can help crypto assets like XRP interact with smart contracts. So this is going to allow companies to earn yield like interest on their crypto or digital asset holdings. And we're familiar with the Ripple US dollar pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar, and Vivo Power is going to be using the Ripple US dollar for daily operations just like a business would end up using cash. So we can see a growing trend of public companies raising funds to add cryptocurrencies to their corporate treasuries. And RLUSD is part of its treasury operation. So what is this treasury operation? This is basically how a company is managing its money, its cash, its investments, its debt, its assets. So now we have a publicly traded company basically saying that they're going to be managing part of their treasury with blockchain. And why does this matter for XRP and these crypto assets? Because they're not just holding crypto, they're actually using it for real business purposes or operations. Alright, and last but not least, coming back to the original tweet by Crypto Eddie, just pointing out, congratulations to Vivo Power, your signed deal with Flare Networks utilizing XRP was just the beginning. And down below, she is citing Fidelity and Investing.com, so starting off with this first URL of Fidelity. We have right here, Vivo Power advances $308 million direct NASDAQ spinoff of Carrot Digital. We have down below for Vivo Power negotiations progressing with the strategic pre-IPO investor in Middle East and Asia for investment of up to $50 million. We have Vivo Power shareholders as of a future record date to receive 5 Carrot Digital shares per Vivo Power share held. And right here, available on Investing.com, we have Vivo Power completes or closes the first phase of a $60.5 million investment. So this is referencing that $121 million private raise that they already did, the private placement, and they received $60.5 million in gross proceeds. And the investment was led by Prince, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, but you guys can see it right there, and includes a consortium of non-US investors. The company currently valued at $51.3 million. And according to the press release, proceeds will support Vivo Power strategy focused on Ripple and XRP treasury and decentralized financial solutions. And there are a million other things in this article, so this is really good. We have Vivo Power listed on NASDAQ since 2016, describes itself as undergoing a strategic transformation to become the world's first XRP-focused digital asset enterprise. The company states its new direction involves acquiring, managing, and holding XRP digital assets as part of a treasury strategy. And they operate globally with a presence in the United Kingdom, Australia, North America, Europe, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. And no surprise here, we have Vivo Power also already announced a strategic partnership with BitGo to enhance its XRP treasury strategy. So managing $100 million in XRP using BitGo's custody and trading platform. So coming back to Crypto Eddie's tweet, she was spot on. This signed deal with Flare Networks utilizing XRP was just the beginning, going over that $300 million direct NASDAQ spinoff, and then even the first phase that just happened recently of $60.5 million as an investment. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. There are massive things going on in today's space. I know that price action might be boring, we might be illiquid at times, but compared to even just the news that we saw in 2017 or even 2020, this is vastly different. Digital assets are part of the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and I will catch you guys in the next video.